So I'm here today to tell you this about how I started a career as a creative and how I built a successful career as an artist. Currently, I'm working as a mural artist, and because there's a lot of things that go into building a successful career, and there's a lot of working parts. And I don't really have time today to break down all of that. But what I'll do is I'll tell the story of how I did it, and hopefully I'll be able to share some reasons in there. Some two things actually that I discovered. That's the difference between whenever people get out of high school, what makes them successful and what makes them unsuccessful. And so hopefully that'll apply to you regardless of whatever it is that you want to do, whether you want to be a painter, a videographer, whether you want to make videos on YouTube, whatever, no matter whatever it is that you want to do. Hopefully these things will be useful because I wish that someone would have told me these things whenever I was in high school. So the first thing is that talent is great to have, but that alone is not enough to make you successful whenever you get out of high school. Because if that was the case, I would have been successful right off the bat, but that wasn't the case because luckily I was born as a very talented artist. Like my first memories of drawings, I would go into my older brother's sketchbooks and remake their drawings, and I would try to like one up them and do it better than they could. And I was really good at it. But the problem was is like being really creative and all that didn't transfer over to school. And so I did really, really bad in school. Like, I think I did my homework twice the entire time I went to school, and I regretted both times doing it. So I just was not good. I actually got kicked out of every school I ever went to, including Mountain Ridge. And I gave up on trying new schools altogether and just dropped out. So this kind of left me with like that feeling of like not knowing what to do or not knowing where to go. And but I knew that there was something that I could have been doing. I knew that I could have been creative. But I didn't have anybody kind of like to help me guide me and tell me like what I could be doing with myself. And so I had just like this feeling that I knew I should be doing something, but I didn't know what it was, and I knew I could be doing something, but I didn't know what it could be. And that feeling is one of the worst feelings in the world. And so I ended up using drugs to try to make myself feel better. And despite being really good at drawing and always wanting to build and always being creative, at 19 years old, I ended up disowned from my family and I ended up in jail. And that's about as unsuccessful as you could possibly be when you get out of high school. And so, like, that's the difference of someone who could be successful when they get out of high school and you see that they're always happy, they have a nice family, they got kids they could take care of, they love what they do. And then there's other people who they have kids that they can't take care of. They're always complaining about everything that's wrong with the world. They always seem to have a million problems. They hate what they do for a living, and that's kind of how it goes whenever you get out. You either have the chance to be able to have a life that you enjoy and a life that you love, or you end up not having a great life. And so I wanted to figure out whenever I went to jail, how could I change it around because I felt like it was pretty low on the totem pole at that point. And so one of the things that I noticed in there is I learned two lessons. The first lesson was that there was a bunch of other people in there, and most of them there were also in there for drugs. And I realized that most of their plans when they got out was just to go out and do drugs again. So that kind of clicked, and I realized like I don't want to be one of these people in this cycle to keep doing that. And so I had to figure out like that was like step one was just like don't do drugs. That was the number one goal whenever I got out. But I still didn't really know exactly what I was going to do as far as creativity. But luckily they had a library in there, and so I had some free time to read some books. And I noticed that one of the things the patterns I noticed in the books is that you had to have a goal, like you had to have something to work towards. And so I decided to make a goal in there while I was in jail, to make a goal to go out and to be creative and to find a way to use my passion for drawing to make a living. And I got out, but I couldn't really quite figure out how to work out. And so my wife Marley and I, we were trying to figure out how to make it work. She was working regular jobs, paying all the bills, and I tried working some regular jobs to pay the bills, but I did just as bad as that as I did in school. I mean, I quit every single job before I even had the chance to get fired. And I still had that feeling that I was like, man, I just don't have that place in the world or something that like that sense of purpose or that sense of that I could do something. But we were still looking. We kept looking because we knew it was out there somewhere. And so we went to the National Gallery of Art one day in DC. And to those of you who haven't been there before, it's this amazing place where they have these huge, gigantic paintings of like old Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces of figures, and it's absolutely mind blowing. And that was my first time ever seeing something like that, and I didn't know anything like that was possible before that. But then it clicked, and once I saw that was possible, I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I didn't know exactly how, but I figured that if they could do it, I could do it too. And so I wanted to try to use every bit of energy I could to figure out how could I paint like these masters? How could I be like them? And so I worked my butt off for the first year. This is back in 2019. And I finally felt like I was working towards something. Things started working out. But the thing is that I still couldn't pay the bills. Like despite getting really, really good. And the problem with not being able to pay the bills is you also can't afford supplies. And so like you can't even you're limited in what you're able to do. And so like without having money coming in, I was having to rely on so many other people to just be able to fund, to be able to buy canvases or to buy paints or to do what I wanted to do. And that still didn't quite feel like I was living up to my truest potential. And so I decided to figure out what was it that made a successful artist and what was it that made the unsuccessful artist and what was the difference. So I went through art history and I studied all of art history and I learned everything that I possibly could. I read every art history book that I could possibly find. And I realized that there was something that all the successful artists knew that the unsuccessful artists didn't know. And it wasn't talent. It wasn't how good they were at painting. They all had someone in their lives that helped them out with business. And they all had an idea of how business worked. And they all had an idea of how to use their creative ability to be able to monetize and to be able to bring in money. And that was the difference between the artists who ended up like Van Gogh, it's a tragedy. They ended up couldn't ever figure out how to make money and they end up having a terrible life, or the artists like Peter Paul Rubens, who whenever they have an amazing life, they go around, they travel, they have a great happy family, and they're doing all these amazing things, and they're having these great accomplishments, and it just seems like everything seems to work out for them. And I don't really have the time to go and break down of all the different things of how business works and all of that, but there is some things that I noticed afterwards when I started realizing that I needed to read business books. And so I started learning, but that wasn't enough because I still wasn't really good at the paperwork thing, like just like how I wasn't good at school, like I wasn't good at filling out paperwork. And so I decided to have Marley help me out. So she quit her job and we decided to go all in and try to figure out how can we make this work. And that's the interesting thing about it is whenever you set your goal and you figure out, you start looking for it, you start finding it, but you don't ever find something that you don't look for in the first place. And so we started going out and looking and we realized that the farther we looked, the more we found. And so we started getting little commissions here and there, but it still wasn't quite enough to pay the bills and we were still struggling a lot. But in 2021, last year, we were looking around, we were trying to find a way to scale up the paintings, and Fat Boys Pizza, we saw a post on Facebook that they were looking for a mural artist. And I'd never done a mural before, but I was really excited about having the opportunity to do something where I could have a chance to like show what I could do. And so we went down, we talked to the owner there, we presented him with the design. We were the first people there to present him with the design, and we ended up getting the deal. 2 weeks later, I got a $2,000 paycheck for my first ever mural deal. That was more money than I made the entire year before in 2020. And that was like the first glimpse of hope. It was like, wow, this is actually possible to like make a living doing this. And so then we had like a little slight pivot. I was like, because we were trying to do like little pop-ups and little exhibits here and there and little commissions, but the murals was something where I was like, wow, this is something that could work. And so we started pivoting and like fine-tuning the goal and figure out who do we want to do murals for. And so we started looking more and more. We found a couple more deals in the area. And by the last half of 2021, things started picking up and business started actually like getting better and we were able to make enough. And this whole entire time, when we would make this money, we wouldn't just go out and splurge it on stupid things. We would go spend it all on like we would get a camera, we got a laptop, and we tried to invest into things that would help us be able to build the business up and find more commissions. And so we found out that it was kind of hard to find a lot of different commissions in this area because it was a smaller area. And so one of the things that we noticed with a lot of creatives is they go to a city. And that was kind of like, it was a little nerve wracking because you wonder like, oh my goodness, it's so much more expensive to go to a city. How are you going to ever figure out you go somewhere and you don't know anybody there? But at the beginning of this year, we decided we had to go do it because we knew that there was more that we could do. And it was just that feeling of not doing what you're supposed to be doing with your life is just not the greatest feeling. And so we booked an Airbnb in Austin, Texas for a month. We didn't have any jobs down in Texas. We didn't know what we were going to do. We just knew that our goal was to find a mural contract. And that was the weird thing about whenever you set your goal and you look for it, somehow magically you find it. And that's one of the things that we've noticed over and over and over again. So we go down to Austin, Texas. 2 weeks in, we ended up getting a deal with Bandero Tequila Company. We do a mural for them, and we don't come back with a huge paycheck, but we come back with enough to pay for the trip and to fund the next one. And so this is like where we're starting to realize a pattern that if we go out to the cities and we start traveling, we're able to find more deals. But we keep looking around here too, and we start to fine tune who we're presenting the murals to, how we're structuring the deals. We start to fine tune our pitch, fine tune our presentation. We're building up our portfolio. We're doing everything we can to build up the best we can. And then the deals start coming in left and right, and we're starting to able to charge more for a deposit down, and we're able to have more free time to go work on the design, and we're able to produce better designs. And then so we start traveling to different cities. Then October of this year, we decided to go down to Miami. We wanted to go to a bigger trip. And one of my goals that I was always writing down was like, man, I wanted to see if I could make over $10,000 in a month from making art. Because that, whenever I first started off, I was like, that just seems like that's totally impossible. I could not fathom how that would be possible. We go down to Miami, we book an Airbnb. If you don't know, Miami is very expensive to go live in, and this was like the last bit of our money. If we didn't have a deal in Miami, when we came back, we'd be dead broke. And so we decided to take the risk. We went out down to Miami, and we ended up week 2. We didn't find one deal, but we met a pediatrician who had 7 rooms that she wanted painted. We got 7 deals, and under 30 days, we made almost $20,000 in 1 month. And so that was like I would have never thought anything like that would be possible, to be able to make that sort of money from doing something creative, from someone who was homeless, who was a junkie, who was totally disowned by their family, got kicked out of every school they ever attended. I didn't know things like that were possible. And I wish somebody would have told me that was possible. And the main thing is like that you get to set your own destiny in life. And that's the main thing that I realized about the people whenever they get out of high school, of the difference of the people who it seems like they're just always enjoying life, and that they're always loving life, and that they're just happy, and they feel good all the time. And then there's other people who it just seems like they're always miserable. I'm like, what is the difference? What happens? Because I've experienced both sides of that. I've been where I felt miserable and I felt like I wasn't doing, and that's like the worst feeling you could possibly feel, is to know you could be doing something with your life and to know that you could have a great life, but to not be doing that. And on the other side, to be doing something that you know that you love and that you enjoy, regardless of whether it's painting or whether it's making videos, making music, whether it's going out and helping people, building things, whatever it is that you're interested in, that's the thing that you know once you start doing it, it's the best feeling in the world to know that you're doing what it is you're supposed to be doing. And I wish somebody would have told me that earlier, and I would have started setting goals a lot earlier. And setting goals could be a little bit confusing if you haven't done it before. So the best tip that I've found for setting goals is you write out on a piece of paper, you write down 10 things that you'd like to do 3 to 5 years from now. It could be literally anything. Like you choose whatever it could be, 10 things that you want to do, and you make your list. Places you want to go, people you want to meet, things you want to accomplish, projects you want to work on, whatever it could be, 10 things. And then you circle. If you could only do one, what would that one thing be? That's your goal. That's how you set a goal. And then that one thing, and then all the other ones, they're side missions. Those are things you could still work towards. But then the interesting thing is once you set a goal, a lot of the other problems in life just kind of seem to fizzle away and become irrelevant. And then, but you have new problems then, and those are your obstacles and your challenges that come up. So here's the most important thing after you circle that is you write out as clearly as you could possibly define, why is that your favorite? Why is that the one you chose? Because that why that you have, whenever a challenge comes up or an obstacle comes up and something that seems like you're not going to be able to accomplish that goal, your reason for why you want that, the better you know that, the more of an attitude you're going to have of, I could get through this and I can figure it out. Because that's the difference, is it's not just setting the goal, it's accomplishing it. And so whenever you have a good reason for wanting to do it, and you know, this is why I want to do this thing, because this is my favorite, this is what I care about, this is what I'm passionate about, whenever you have that reason, you'll be able to overcome all the obstacles and you'll be able to sort through it, because there's no possible way you'll have all of the answers figured out. But that's the great thing, is all of the things that we admire about heroes and about the great sports legends and all the great people throughout history is that they were able to overcome the challenges and overcome all the different hardships that were presented to them. And so that's having that reason of why you want to accomplish your goal is like one of the best things that you could have in order to accomplish it. And then that's the thing, once you accomplish your goal, it's like it's not something that you just do once and then you're done with forever. Like that's the difference between the people who are successful and the people who are unsuccessful. Is the people who are successful, they love setting goals, and they're always, because you literally are choosing the destiny of your life. And so maybe you get closer to that and you figure out that's not exactly what I wanted, but now you have a new perspective, you've built different characters, and so now you could go and you could set a different goal. And it's that moving towards the goal that produces the positive emotion where it makes you feel good, it makes you feel like you're doing something with your life. And the goal doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the fact that you feel fulfilled and you feel like you're working on something purposeful. So regardless of whatever it is that you're doing, for me, it was just doing something creative and making art. I didn't know that it was going to be painting until I went to the National Gallery, and I didn't know that it was going to be murals until it was a Fat Boys mural. And so it's a nonstop play with the world that you're engaged in. And so it's always fine tuning and adjusting that and making little pivots here and there and adjusting it as you go. But that's the beauty of it, is it doesn't have to be like totally in a linear fashion. That's where it feels more of like an adventure than it feels like you're just getting by and you're just doing whatever it takes to get by. And it feels like more of an adventure. And so the number one thing that I wish I would have known is that trick right there, is how to set goals and how to work towards them. And then taking the next step and that leap of faith, like whenever we went down and booked those Airbnbs without knowing, just taking that leap of faith and trying to figure out how to make it work, like that's one of the things that if you can't wish yourself into being successful. You can't just set a goal and cross your fingers and hope it happens. Like it involves taking risk and going out there. But what else is there to do? I mean, if you like, you could be. Would you rather be one of the people who ended up who don't feel like they have anywhere to go or don't feel like they know what they're doing? Because I've been there, and that's not the place that I wanted to be. But you get used to working at things. You get used to being the person who does things that haven't been done before, and you get used to being the person who does things that they didn't know how to do and they figured it out. And that's like the most rewarding feeling. It's like the best feeling in the world. And like I said, Mountain Ridge. I got expelled from Mountain Ridge whenever I was in ninth grade, and so I didn't know that it'd be possible for me to come back here and talk to the students. And so like there was a lot of things, like especially in the day and the age of the internet, anything that you want to learn, you have at your fingertips. And so there's like infinite and tremendous potential and possibility that is in front of like every one of you. And the way that the world is going is a lot of jobs are becoming less career based and more freelance based and project based. And that means like a lot of freedom and possibility for all of you to go out and do amazing things and to be able to have the freedom to do things that you're actually interested in and to do things that you really care about. And so that was the reason why I wanted to come here today, is to share that with you, because I really wish some of you may already know this, but I didn't know that whenever I was your age. And I really wish someone would have told that and broke it down, especially the part about how to set goals, because that is like the number one thing that helps keep Marley and I going. And we work on setting goals every day. And that's the thing that helps us be able to keep moving forward and have something that we're working towards.
As art teacher to many of you through the years, I'm thinking back to my high school days, which was back in 1900, and I don't remember. But anyway, we were never taught anything you just talked about. How many of you in class have been taught about setting goals and how to work towards them? I'm just curious. Okay, a couple of you. It's okay if you have, that's great. But my point is this: so much of our classes are focused on going to college, doing this, doing certain things to get you ready for that. But sometimes when you leave high school, you aren't ready. And the fact that you overcame all that and are, it sounds like, well on your road to success, the two of you. And by the way, I've been following y'all on Facebook. I'm like, and when you're telling your story about going to Miami, in my mind, I thought you found that job here and then went. When you said you went down there on the faith of your goal and were able to get that mural commission, holy mackerel, that is just incredible. This is amazing to me because, I follow my students that leave Mountain Ridge, and some of them become successful artists. Some go on to do other things, and maybe they're not entirely happy doing other things because their true passion was art, but like you were talking about making a living and all that, they got into a different job. This is pretty incredible. And I'm going to tell you right now, in my memory bank, I've stored a few things y'all said, and I'm 55 years old. And y'all taught me a few things that I need to do. Again, some of you may leave high school, and maybe it is not your intention at all to do a career in art. But a lot of what he has said about the goal setting and so forth, it can apply to any career path you want. Okay? Yes, he's an artist. We brought him into art class, but take out the word art or painting, insert what you want to do.